Elwynn. My time feels like it is moving with a hurried pace forward. Each day is new and in no time old. It's winter, the insular season of silence, which is accompanied with the usual preferences for reflection, quiet learning, and warmth. Under dim lights, I often look out at falling snow and be reminded of nestled memories of my youth. From these flashbacks, thoughts commonly crawl towards emotions, eventually transmuting themselves into cherishable yet melancholic sensations. I can smell the notes of a very specific spiced tea, feel the soft weight of a blanket cloaked around my body, and recognize a boxy monitor's faint, beacon-like glow cutting through the thick fog of time. Passion and sense swirl down my chest, cresting wistful waves off my ribs. From those splashes come crystals, little gem-like shapes of recollection that glimmer all the way down to my stomach. It's always painful, burning, but with an edge of nourishment. Usually I'll fix back on the snowfall outside. At the crossroads of dream state and reality, I'll see you, muted, without color. Most of the time, these nostalgic feelings fade as attention returns, but occasionally I'll close my eyes and hear your pulse. Your artistry and peace is gaming's hug, a spreading warm radiance like home cresting on the horizon from a long journey. Garnished across your crown of trees is a storybook fantasy, the kind I envisioned since being a kid. Innocent and astonished as you, Elwynn, were so many stumbled into something unusually grand. From the moment one leaves Northshire, it's apparent that you were to act as a gateway to the true main character of this game, the world. Still, the sandbox training ground for understanding WoW and heart and mechanics was made true by places like you. In this way, you fostered us, providing an a la carte version of character development through fighting. Objectives, crafting, and class-orientated pursuits. Such actions were a means of facilitating our eventual departure from the Magic Wood's nest. Though less insular than Mulgore, Dunmoreau, or Teldrassil, there's a sense of pureness safeguarded within the arc of your mountains. You symbolize the parental figure in the way you tenderly held our hands to eventually cross the bridge, step between the mountains, or pass under the towering gates. Your purpose has always been to begin heroes. Explorers were toughened by the nudges of threat you brooded. Upon the achievement of completing our training was an excitement for passage, but also an understanding that dangers wouldn't be as modest as homes. In your zone, the world is not ending. Instead, local issues tethered everyday life to a breathing environment. Wildlife, land, resources, errands, and interpersonal quarrels narratively motivated and propelled us towards approachable goals. I and everyone else emerged as mere inhabitants of the knolls, devised thieves, murlocs, other humans, and kobolds. Myself adjacent to these fantastical creatures appeared genuine atop a stage set of simple problems. I did not arrive as a divine savior, but rather my facelessness along your road assimilated me as a commoner of the region. Ahead was uncertainty, but mainly a shock of wonder in the sheer scale of the world and the volume of the players. Undoubtedly, this was made even more alive by passing mounts, rare mobs, or AFK higher levels. These kinds of encounters would navigate all playtime towards craving such divinity. In a way, you acted as my shire, the starting point, a place representing maximum coziness that had to be left behind in order to start something both life-changing and dangerous. But you are not easily forgotten. Any flight to Stormwind reminded me that there's an undeniable charm about your story, your presence, and your aesthetic. It's one familiar and with extraordinary resonance, instigating a feeling of being a kid in the woods, going downhill on a bike, or hearing a good tale beside the snaps of a lively fire. I think that's because your environment is the living in the ordinary, the kind of hometown love that makes poets out of people, stories out of normality, and enthusiasm for the path ahead. In each place there is something to investigate relating to the spectacle of exploring in youth, a time where a bug can be as interesting as a bear, and trees can become fortresses decorated with regal banners. The creativeness was far and wide in your zone. For instance, stirring life layered over foothills that concealed caverns of mining kobolds, while close shores revealed the foreign lands of Westfall and Duskwood. Underneath, a veiled conspiracy of shadows hid behind red masks in barns and banded across farmland. Princess, Goldshire, Augur. Communally, they are memorable, bastion in gaming history and culture. Trailing behind any quest item, weapon swung, plucked herb, or casted spell are the hands of millions who have done the very same. For this reason, your forest whispers of once adventures, and every property within can be a vehicle to evoke a moment in lost time. Tucked away in your hidden alcoves or out in the open forest bed is the homeland for a shared mythology, one of imagination where each character who took part added to an ongoing verse, a true fairy tale of people. Some of what you embody is reminiscent of Midsummer's Night Dream. Outside the city walls and off the winding path, the forest thematically illustrates a certain kind of anarchy, outside the social standards represented by society. In the play, there is indeed a kind of nighttime wickedness and confusion present, but it is out in the woods that the natural self can be, where young lovers find proper order, and where escape, renewal, and change can occur. I feel this applies to someone experiencing your grace for the first time. The wilderness is rife with opportunities for disorder, yet it's in these unruly woods that one initiates, collects, and gains the proficiency necessary to surmount new heights. Even past the evident nod to Romeo and Juliet, it's hard to not see the Shakespearean and more broadly theatrical factors of your quests and composition. Sprinkled throughout are reminders of being human, of drama, and the incongruity of life. Likewise, in appearance, there's a presence of classic video game locations such as Sacred Forest Meadow, Forest Maze, Cedar Woods, and Summer Forest. Crossing under your canopied sprawl conjures images of woodland landscape paintings. Traditional fantasy book covers, as well as other real and fictitious forests. Each of these elements glides unrushed, parallel to the rhythm and archetype of old nursery rhymes, childhood tales, and pastoral poetry. Your art style is enriched by a pleasant design, and it's dense in natural ambiance. There's a nice bright earth tone palette which looks lovely bathed in the light of sun or moon. Of course, the real underlying glue is the entrancing music. All of these actions are enchanted by twinkling harps, mysterious horns, coated with chirps, chops, clings, steps, and running riverbeds. Your music is a timeless portal to the always golden hour good old days. It is delicate, curious, but with a tense sort of secrecy to it. Sound and landscape collided, sprouting the foundation for a collective freedom of immersion. You functioned as a digital highway of compact socialization, but with the pace and views of taking the scenic route. Slash nods, waves, and buffs were generous along the cobblestone roads and by quest hubs. Outside Stormwind all the way to Goldshire flooded with energy, duels, and degeneracy. Naturally, enemies and friendships formed, some of which made it all the way to Deadmines, to 60, and far beyond the next expansions. The hypnotizing spell of your flora and fauna, combined with your fable and formation, supported the unification of the player base, while also budding a link from self to world. It was in part your soil that nurtured the community's seed to sprout into its very own forest. These influences spilled onto the trees and structures, becoming frameworks of a gentle canvas for a story to take place. It is here the common player, that we made our own originality real. Alas, rugged leather eventually changed to a footman tunic, the same way a lesser magic wand upgraded to a greater, and with each step, innocence translated to a journey. I wish every new road could be like you, Elwynn, an experience of depth, rich in unexplored entanglements glimmering with the brushstrokes of those that cared. You felt warm, safe, like being tucked in a bed, drifting with heavying eyes of curiosity and caution. From Thunder Falls to Mirror Lake, Fargo Deep Mine to Brackwell Pumpkin Patch, any piece of your land is to be swept into. Linen here, nor there, chess usually here. All these interactions connected and forced me to absorb, slow down, and be embedded into a meticulously crafted merger of technology and design. In many ways, you are mastery displayed, assembled by the spiritual potentiality of human life. It never ceases to raise goosebumps over the truth that imperfect people constructed you. Graceful and with resounding discipline, the initial team shaped a great game, but more than that, they became examples of when development meets sincere passion, a truly once-in-a-lifetime game. WoW will always be about an imaginative community built over a core passion project. It shall forever remain a light of creative revolution. Elwynn, it will be some time before I see you again, but that fact does not silence what you've taught me about seeking new grounds. In the cold season right now, I find myself placing happiness in the idea of tomorrow. In some ways, you represent that there is no delay in the ability of living for right now. Little treasures of your intermoving parts, distinctive landmarks, and auditory omnipresence can be found in everything related to learning and love. I think a piece of what you shared with me is that freshly starting out with anything, I can be mentally in Northshire. Anonymous, naive, and scared there stands an entire world before you, almost overwhelming in its complexity, but always characterizing knowledge, vibrance, and soul. After all, as humans, it doesn't take a specific level, long walk, or item to start in Elwynn Forest. When it comes time to explore something unfamiliar, I hope to call upon that pocket of everything you inspire and take the time to sincerely discover and learn, like it's my first time at the Eastvale logging camp or climbing the Tower of Azora. For this reason, I hold you dearly close, as you remind me to be deliberately unhurried, and that it's okay to get lost in a place you know.